Hello students, welcome to SST class standard 6th, and today we shall learn lesson number 4 part 2, that is Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamian civilization flourished in the area that lies in a valley between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern Iraq. In Greek, Mesopotamia means the land between the rivers. This region was ruled by Sumerians, Babylonians, Hittites, Assyrians, and Neo-Babylonians. That is, in Mesopotamia, the two rivers that led for their civilization, that is, the river Tigris and Euphrates, and it flows directly throughout Iraq. In Greek, Mesopotamia means the land between the rivers, that is, like island. All the sides was covered by the water, and in between there was land, and this land was called as Mesopotamia. This region was ruled by Sumerians. There were many other rulers who conquered one by one, and they started ruling their own rulers, and these were the Sumerians, Babylonians, Hittites, Assyrians, and Neo-Babylonians. It is the part of fertile crescent area also known as the cradle of civilization. In the next part here, you can see the map how the river Tigris and the Euphrates river, they flow throughout the Iraq. You can see here river flowing. Now we shall go for the second part, that is political history. Sumerians were responsible for one of the first civilizations in this region. Ur, Kish, and Lagash were the important city-states that flourished here. Sumerians used cuneiform system of writing on wet clay slates. Mesopotamians were in contact with Indians. The Akkadians ruled after Sumerians. They were conquered and destroyed by the barbarians. Later, Amorites, another Semitic tribe, ruled from Babylonian. They brought the Akkadian state under their control and established a large state. Here you can see the pictures of Babylonia. In the first part, you can see the picture how they wrote the scripts over the clay models, and these were called as tablets. And these were the tablets in the sense they were soft clay, and on that clay they used to write their script. And in the second part, you can see the picture of Babylonian, that is how it was looking, how the city was before, and it was ruled by different conquerors like Sumerians, barbarians. They were led one after the other. Here you can see the Akkadians ruled by Sumerians, and after they were destroyed by the barbarians. Later again it was brought by the Akkadian state under their control and established a large state. And this was possible by the different kings. And this was the political history. Now we shall see how the kings ruled. The first king was Hammurabi. He is the most famous king among Babylonians. He was famous for this code of laws. His code of laws is based on ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Babylonian rule was followed by Kassite and Hittite races were ruled for some time. Now Hammurabi was a famous king, and he was the sixth king of the first Babylonian dynasty. And his law of codes were Ur Namu, the victim of the crime. Here was given the physical punishment. That is, if one person does anything wrong, if two people are fighting, suppose, and one has hit the other, or he may have snatched his eye. So it was a rule that the opposite person will also snatch an eye. And that is why it was said as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That is, if tooth was fallen or it was removed by accidentally in the fight, the same process will be followed by the other party. And so it was said as tooth for a tooth. So Babylonian rule was followed by the Kassite and Hittite races who followed for some time. And he was very strong king. Now we shall see about Ashurbanipal. That is, Assyrians were defeated Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. Ashurbanipal was the last king of the Assyrian. He was a brave warrior and also a poet. He founded a royal library at Nineveh, and it was such a big library, even today it is been remembered. Ashurbanipal, he organized the first systematically organized library in the world. It had religious documents, handbooks, traditional things of Mesopotamian stories also, and it gave a detailed idea about the king's rule. Now we shall go for the next king, that is Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was, after Assyrians, that is Assyrians, another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans, that is Chaldeans, re-established Babylonia. Nebuchadnezzar was the great king among them. He created Hanging Garden, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Finally, about 2500 years ago, Cyrus conquered the city of Babylonia, which resulted in the downfall of Mesopotamia. Now here you can see in the picture, this is called as the Hanging Garden. You must have come in the view that a hanging garden, maybe it hangs from this side to that side, but it is not so. Hanging garden is built in rows, and you can see there a step here, a step coming downwards in the slide. And this is called as the Hanging Garden. Nebuchadnezzar was a very strong king. It is also said that he built the Hanging Garden of Babylonian for his wife, in the remembrance of his wife, and that is Media, to remind her of her homeland in Persia. And so he built this Hanging Garden. Now we shall learn about the contributions of the Mesopotamian civilization. And in this we are discussing about the laws. Mesopotamians were the first to adopt the code of law in the world. Hammurabi was the first ruler to enforce the code of laws. He had prohibited abuse of slaves in his code of law. Mesopotamians had established trade relationships with Harappa and Egyptian civilizations. Each city had a guardian deity, as in Egypt. High-rise temples named ziggurats were built here. Cuneiform script was used by these people. Gilgamesh is a great epic poem of Mesopotamian, and here you can see about the ziggurat or the temples. It was said as in the contributions of Mesopotamians, we can see the ziggurats, or the other name is temples. Gilgamesh, you can see the word Gilgamesh. It's the last part, Gilgamesh. Now we shall first see about the laws of the world, that is the code of law. And what it was, code of law. And Hammurabi was the first to adopt the laws of code. That is, he had prohibited the abuse of slaves in his code of law. So ever he had the rules of an eye to eye and tooth for a tooth, but he was against the use of slaves. As I had before explained, slaves are the people who are maybe poor, maybe secondly they were conquered by the king, the opposite king, and they were said as slaves, and they were made to work for free of work in any of the king's place, or maybe the king's rulers. And these slaves were harassed in the sense they were punished and they were not treated properly. So these were said as slaves. Hammurabi, in his code of law, he focused on the compensating the victim of the crime. The law of Hammurabi placed the greater emphasis on the physical punishment for the victim. Now we shall see about the ziggurat. Ziggurats are the temples, and these were high-rised temples named ziggurats were built in cuneiform script was used. Here a cuneiform way of writing was used. These impressive pyramids, like stepped temples, which were either square or rectangular, they had sloping sides and terraces with the gardens. You can see in the picture here. In turn, they also had the hanging garden of Babylonian. In the garden, in the temples, beside the temple, there were gardens also. And Gilgamesh is a great epic poem of the Mesopotamians. Here he was a king. Later the poem became inscriptions, and it was an inscription and also an inspiration for the coming kings, the forward kings. Whoever adopted these process or these laws were very successful. And it was a poem wherein it is believed that the gods had a victory over demons or spirits. And for the later kings, these poems helped them to conquer more states and more places. With the help of ziggurats, even Hammurabi was in this process, Hammurabi was very successful. And so this was the lesson about the Mesopotamian civilization.